Hello, you guys. I hope you're all doing really well. So in today's video, I wanted to share with you 5 phrases that native speakers almost never say. And we're getting really nuanced here. So if your goal is simply to be clear in English and understood easily by everyone, then this is going beyond that, okay? But today's video is going to be helpful if your goal is really to sound like a native English speaker from North America. So let's hop right in. So as you guys may or may not know, English is what's called a stress-timed language. And what that means is that certain words in your sentence are going to be made more acoustically interesting by changing the loudness, the length, and the pitch. And then on the other side of that coin, we make words less interesting if they're not in the stressed position. So this has really profound implications as well for pronunciation and articulation. So unless we're looking at a very specific case in which these words are being stressed for a very specific reason, the words are usually going to be reduced if they're boring, high-frequency words that we see all the time. So for the purposes of today's video, I want you guys to assume that you're hearing these phrases in a neutral, very common context, not in an exceptional context. Because if we were in an exceptional context, then you would have the right to stress these, and then they would sound totally different. So that's actually why I said at the beginning, these are phrases that native speakers almost never say. They do have the right to say these phrases, but again, only in these very, very specific and rare circumstances. So the first phrase that native speakers almost never say is she will. She will. So both she and will are extremely high frequency words. So we can make an assumption that the grand majority of the time, the words she and will are in fact acting as just a referent and a grammatical marker. They're not actually carrying the meaning of the whole sentence, okay? So because of that, we wouldn't say, she will go to a party next week. We'd contract them and say, she'll go to that party next week. Or she'll be an excellent candidate for that position. Whatever the case may be, instead of she will, the phrase becomes she'll. If right now you're wondering whether you can say she'll instead of she'll, you can. However, that's less reduced. So again, it would slightly alter the meaning, the rhythm, and the stress of your sentence. So it would depend on what you're going for. However, I think that I very rarely say she's. I think I either say, yes, she is, if I'm stressing, or she's going to have a great time as the really reduced and contracted forms if I'm not stressing. Our next phrase is that is. That is. So again, extremely high frequency words. They're not going to be the winners of your sentence unless there's a specific exceptional circumstance. So it would be unusual to hear, I think that is a great idea. That sounds very robotic and unnatural. Instead, you're going to hear, I think that's a great idea. So that is becomes that's. So it's not even a full form that's, it's really more of a schwa sound that fits in there. I think that's a great idea. Like in the previous example, it's by no means wrong to say that's. However, where that's more full form, it's going to be used in slightly different circumstances than the most reduced form, which would be that's. It sounds really weird to say it without a context because that's not how English works, but you guys get the idea. So in a sentence, I would have said, I think that's a great idea, and that sounds normal. The third phrase that native speakers rarely say is they will. They will. So again, unless it's the stressed part of a sentence or a standalone phrase, that will become they'll. I think they'll really enjoy the class. So as in the previous 2 examples, technically, you could argue that it should be they'll. Listen to that sentence. I think they'll really enjoy the class. I think they'll really enjoy the class. That's still taking up quite a bit of space in the sentence, assuming that we both know who they is, right? We have to both know, otherwise we couldn't be using the word they. We'd have to say Nikki and John. So for that reason, we both know who they is, and we can really reduce it as much as possible. The fourth phrase that native speakers almost never say is it has. It has. So let's look at this sentence. It has been so long. How have you been? It has been so long. sounds and feels very unnatural. Instead of this, you should say it's. It's been so long. How have you been? As I was reading that, I noticed the how have you is another really common contraction. So there, I could have said how have you been? But again, native speakers wouldn't say that because it would be more natural and correct and appropriate to reduce there. So it's been so long, how have you been? And the final phrase that native speakers almost never say is you are. You are. So again, unless you're stressing this phrase intentionally, like yes, you are, we're gonna reduce it. So if I was to say, I think you're on the right track, that sounds natural and common and everyday. And if I was to say, I think you are on the right track, that doesn't sound natural to a native English speaker from North America. That's gonna sound and feel much less natural and sincere. All that being said, you guys, I don't want this video to scare you if you don't use contractions. I don't want to be giving you the message that you don't sound sincere or natural, because if someone knows you're not from here, then they won't have the same expectations of your stress and your contraction usage. However, like I said at the beginning, if your goal really is to sound exactly like a native English speaker from North America, then this is something that you should definitely practice and you will see improvements really quickly. Before wrapping up, I just want to share some funny food for thought with you guys. So obviously I rewatch my own videos multiple times as I'm editing, and I find that I actually reduce a lot less in my videos than in real life. And I want you guys to kind of observe this phenomenon depending on what you're watching. So in this case, I'm making you guys a video presentation, and the context itself is a little bit more formal than me hanging out with my husband in my pajamas, right? And speaking really, really freely and naturally. So as you're listening for contractions, definitely make a mental note of the context. If someone is giving a very important presentation, they're gonna tend to contract less to sound more formal. However, if someone is talking with their friends, so if you're watching a sitcom or reality TV where this phenomenon can really be observed, then you're really going to be able to get a really natural and good feel for how contractions are used in everyday English. So if you guys aren't naturally inclined to use contractions, I recommend that you practice out loud with me right now. But first, if you can, slow down your YouTube playback speed so that you can really hear all these small transitions very accurately. So I'm going to read each sentence 2 times. What I recommend is that the first time you just listen, and the second time say it along with me. So here we go. Number 1, she'll get back to you later this week. She'll get back to you later this week. Number 2, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. Number 3, they'll really enjoy the class. They'll really enjoy the class. Number 4, it's been so long, how have you been? It's been so long, how have you been? And number 5, I think you're on the right track. I think you're on the right track. All right, you guys, well, that's it for today's video. I hope you're all doing really, really well, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.